Hey guys, welcome to the show. So excited to be here. While we're waiting for a few more people to jump in. Thank you, Quaker Socialists. Yes, I'm so excited. I'm so glad to have you guys here. So, gosh, I'm a little nervous. I won't even lie. So this is the premiere, or I'm going to be premiering the podcast trailer for my new show coming up. That's going to be it's going to be a video and audio podcast. It's not going to be live just yet. I want to get my feet wet and get my sea legs a little bit. So it's going to be pre-recorded episodes, but you'll get the video clips on FHL and then also on my other YouTube channel, the Killjoy Guide podcast. So definitely go over and subscribe. That way you can be one of the first, get on the ground floor and start following me over there too. You can also start supporting the show through Anchor. So definitely check that out. All the links should be down below. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and show you guys the podcast trailer first, and then we can go from there. And I'll tell you guys basically what the show is going to be like, kind of give you an idea of where my head is at, and then I'll take your guys' questions. All right, let me bring it up. Hold on one second. Oh, shoot. My goodness, it is taking its time. So sorry, guys. I didn't realize that it was still premiering. My lipstick matches. As all you guys know who are regulars, my internet sucks. So just be a second. I have to do this a different way. Let's try this a different way. Oh. Right. Are you guys able to hear that? Just FYI. Yes, it will be on Spotify, JM. In fact, the audio should be on Spotify now. Fun.
I graduated 2 years ago. It's about time I used this degree, right? Welcome to the Killjoy Guide, the weekly feminist podcast for the 99%. I'm your host, Killjoy Meg. I'm starting this podcast because I'm a passionate feminist and leftist who's tired of watching liberals co-ops and misuse revolutionary feminist discourse to promote their own self-interest to the detriment of progressive and left movements. Being a girl boss and breaking glass ceilings isn't inherently progressive or feminist, especially if it doesn't dismantle the systems that got you there. It's time for us to take back the feminist narrative and build a movement that serves all of us, the 99%. To do that means we'll have to be the liberal feminist Killjoy. Being a Killjoy means disrupting the status quo, refusing to play by respectability politics, and popping the liberal fantasy that intersectional movements can ever be successful in an imperialist, racist, capitalist, patriarchal system. Each week, we'll look deeper at intersectional issues like healthcare, housing, the climate crisis, a living wage, prison abolition, and imperialism. We'll break down revolutionary concepts like intersectionality, identity politics, and liberation, and challenge the ways that neoliberalism has co-opted these ideas to prevent systemic change. We'll analyze politics, pop culture, and the media. We'll talk to activists, journalists, scholars, and other allies who can break down these issues so that we can challenge the narratives that we oppose, build a strong left movement so we can hold those in power accountable, and dismantle the systems of domination that hold all of us captive. The first episode of the Killjoy Guide premieres on YouTube and wherever you find your favorite podcasts on July 13th. New podcast episodes and video clips from the show will premiere for free each following Tuesday. So subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. You can follow the Killjoy Guide on Twitter and Instagram at the Killjoy Pod, or visit thekilljoyguide.com for more information about the show. See you Killjoys on July 13th.
Yay! So what do you guys think? Hopefully it's mostly good things. So yeah, that's the new show coming up, the Killjoy Guide, the left feminist podcast for the 99%. So it's definitely for all of us, guys. Yes, thank you, Bess. Thank you, Bess. I appreciate that. Bess is going to be a guest coming up. We'll have to schedule that soon. Yes, thank you, Savvy. Guys. So that is thank you, Wash. Thank you. I'm so glad you're amped up. I am really amped up too. So thank you. I am very excited about this. So first off, I want to go ahead and explain like where, what I consider to be feminist, because I think there are a lot of misconceptions from people about what feminism is, so the way that most people tend to define feminism is, kind of like the dictionary definition of, equality between men and women, equality of the sexes. And I don't really see it that way. I actually see it more through the lens of Bell Hooks, and she defines it a different way. So let me bring up her book. So this is Feminism. Feminism is for everybody. Right, why are you not letting me? Share my screen. Okay. Okay, so Bell Hooks in her book Feminism is for Everybody defines feminism as a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. And I love this definition too, because it really defines it as a movement against sexism, because that's what it is. It's not about hating men or anything like that, or saying like, oh, women need to be so-called equal to men, because we know for a fact that men are not equal to other men. So which men are we supposed to be equal to? Because rich men are not equal to poor men. Black men are not equal to white men. LGBTQ men are not equal to heterosexual men. So who exactly are we going to be equal to? So that definition doesn't really work that well when you really think about what equality actually means. So I really love her definition of feminism. And then the way that she describes patriarchy too, is that patriarchy is not just patriarchy. It's imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist, and intersectionality. All those things combine. All of those different issues combine. All those systems of domination all interlock and create new systems of oppression depending on where you sit at the intersection. So I love this where she talks here too about imagine living in a world where there is no domination, where females and males are not alike or even always equal, but where a vision of mutuality is the ethos shaping our interaction. Imagine living in a world where we can all be who we are, a world of peace and possibility. And males able to create beloved community, to live together, realizing our dream of freedom and justice, living the truth that we are all created equal. So that's the way that I like to define my feminism, is through that lens. So I don't really consider it as just like fighting for equality, but ending those systems of oppression because they all hold us captive. So this is kind of like the ethos of the show that I'm going for, is that, you know, looking at those intersectional issues, understanding how we're all oppressed by all these systems. It's not just women are not a monolith. You know, we have different issues that are important to us, but there are certain things that that definitely we can all kind of come together on, particularly things like housing, healthcare, imperialism, even reparations. So all these things we can work together, because these systems, like if women are being, you know, oppressed by racism, we need to be fighting racism. If women are being, you know, threatened by endless wars, we need to stop the endless wars. If women are being harmed in prison, we need to do prison abolition. These are all feminist issues, and we can't pretend that they're not, because women are impacted by all of these things. So this is how I think of feminism. So you guys are welcome to share your own ideas about what that means. And we have to say that, you know, patriarchy hurts men too, guys. Patriarchy hurts you guys too. So you're also involved here, and we are fighting for you too. So definitely start showing me your questions, and I can get to as many of them as possible. As I said, if you want to go ahead and start supporting the show, you can support it through FHL on Ko-fi. So that's Ko-fi/FHL Network. You can support the show directly on Anchor. Okay, yes, human trafficking definitely impacts women. In many more words that are men. Absolutely. I'm not familiar with hierarchy. Is that how you pronounce it? But yeah, I definitely Patricia Hill Collins' Matrices of Domination is definitely a big influence, because that's one of the things that people don't really understand about intersectionality. Intersectionality, it was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, but that's a fairly new term. But the idea of intersectionality has been around for quite some time. You can even go back as far as, you know, Sojourner Truth's "Ain't I a Woman" speech, and see that we've been talking about the intersections of race, class, and gender for over 100 years, and going further back. So it's always been an interest, and a lot of different people have written about it even before Kimberly Crenshaw, including, you know, Angela Davis. She wrote her book, Women, Class, and Race. Sorry, said that wrong. Women, Race, and Class. If you haven't read that yet, highly recommend Women, Race, and Class. So this came before Kimberly Crenshaw. Bell Hooks' book came before Kimberly Crenshaw. Frances Beale was talking about double jeopardy during the 1960s and 1970s. So these are not new ideas. It's just that's finally a term that was coined for it. This is a good question. What do you think of the MSM narrative that U.S. is current about women? No, they're not. Because if they actually cared about women, then they wouldn't have gone in the first place. Because one of the things that people don't talk about when it comes to war is that, it's not just soldiers that are dying. It's not just soldiers who are being affected. Women are affected in war, and they're very often more impacted because not only are they the ones left behind, they're also killed in war. They're also they have to deal with a lot of the aftermath. So women are very impacted. They're often raped. Like one of the consequences of the Iraq war, for instance, is that ISIS went into Iraq and started raping and Yazidi women. And, the mainstream media, went in and interviewed the Yazidi women, but then did nothing to help them. So that's a story that not a lot of people hear. So I think that we need to be talking about that more. When people are trying to say, oh, we need to go into the Middle East in order to protect women's rights, like they're using that as a front. We need to be clear about that. They have no interest in helping women. That's not why they're going in there. They're doing it for imperialism. So that is a very right-wing form of use of feminism, and I don't agree with it. What was that? Sorry, don't. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. Right. Women's rights is an interesting way to describe lithium deposits. True. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely, Jonathan. The number of sexual assaults children missing, absolutely. I hope you guys can't hear the fireworks going on in the background. If you can, let me know. When you have to remind people that women are spoils of war and war is male supremacy. Very true. And not only just male supremacy, but capitalist supremacy, because we have to remember that all these things intersect. So it is very much men, fighting other men for resources in those countries in order to further exploit them. Yeah, it's definitely not a third world problem. Feminism needs to be an international movement. We need to be just as concerned about women abroad as we are at home. And we have to recognize that this is one of the things about transnational feminism, which I'll definitely get into. That colonialism played a role in how we see different countries as third world. In most academic circles now, they don't even use the word third world. It's global north, global south. Global north representing the colonial countries, so the colonizers, and the global south being the colonized. So, and that are still reeling from our history of colonizing those nations. And the United States is very directly involved in a lot of these things. So we need to keep that open whenever we talk about the third world. Is that a lot of these countries that we consider third world they've never recovered from colonialism and the role that we have played in the problems that exist in a lot of those countries. Will you be unpacking on your show over time the history of white feminists being? Oh, absolutely. In my mind, white feminism is not feminism. It's not. And you don't have to be white in order to engage with white feminism. Like Angela Davis actually called it bourgeois feminism because it's very much an upper class type of feminism of recognizing that, and you're absolutely right. They don't recognize the intersection. If your feminism is not intersectional, your feminism is bullshit. So it's bullshit. It's not feminism. So I'll say that straight out. White feminism is not feminism. It's bullshit. And I'm glad that you actually brought that up, Quaker, because that's actually something else that has greatly impacted my feminism over the last few years. Is a book that I read. Very influential to me. And one of them is this book. It's called Empowered. And it's called by Sarah Bannewiser, who I definitely want to have on the show to talk about it. And basically what she talks about is what's called an economics of visibility. So in this economics of visibility, whenever you talk about the media or like social media, all visibility is currency. Being able to be put up in mainstream media, getting clicks, getting likes, all of these different things, getting retweets, all of this stuff is currency. It adds value to whatever it is that you're saying. And because we're in capitalism, the forms of feminism that will become popular and that will become visible will always be forms of feminism that are least challenging to the patriarchal capitalist system and the white supremacist system. So that's why white feminism is often the one that is most prolific, is because that's the one that's most seen. So that's why a show like this is so important, because we're speaking truth to that part. We're going to pop that bubble and say, no, that's not feminism. That's not feminism. That's bullshit. This over here, we need to be talking about women of color. We need to be talking about what's happening with Indigenous women. We have to be talking about what's happening at the border. All these issues are important, and we need to be talking about this. And so this show is about getting visibility to those issues as well, not just white feminism. Let's see. Great question. Are there places in the world where women don't have as many rights as men do? Saudi Arabia. Absolutely, I support their right for solidarity movement, cross feminism, because women in Saudi Arabia only just recently got the right to drive, and the women who fought for that right were imprisoned. That's fucking bullshit. That's not cool at all. They should not be in jail. Women should be allowed to drive. They should have self-determination. And we should absolutely support their right to do that. Wait, male feminist versus... I don't even know how I would even address that. Are we talking female misogyny? So women basically internalize misogyny? Is that what we're talking about? And we do have to be kind of careful about men should absolutely, but feminists, they tend to be feminists just to attract female attention. And so that's not really feminism. That's just them using feminism for their own gains. So we should talk about that, definitely. All right, so white feminism is a MIC. Okay, yeah. Definitely. We know we love a woke CIA. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right about a lot of that. It's like, I love the way that Ronnie Akalik actually talks about it as imperialist feminism. The idea that, and I can talk a lot about girl boss feminism, which is something I absolutely hate. It is not inherently feminist to be a girl boss, especially if you're using feminism for your own gains. And I can talk about that more in just a minute if you guys want me to. But yeah, we definitely, it's not helpful to have a woke CIA. And that's something that is definitely used against feminist movement, considering, you saw whenever Gina Haspel was about to be named the CIA director, and then all of a sudden Tommy Lauren and Sarah Huckabee Sanders were like, oh, if you're a feminist, you have to support Gina Haspel because she's a woman in charge of a, she's the first woman to be in charge of the CIA. I was like, no, I don't have to support that. I don't have to support female imperialists. That's not feminism. Oh. Sorry. Yes, feminism, radical idea that women, yes. So I definitely believe in a feminism that's based in humanism. Definitely, our feminism should absolutely be based in human rights. Women are humans and we should be treated as such. Absolutely, the master's tool will never dismantle the master's house. Great writing, Audre Lorde. That's a fantastic one. And it's completely true. I'm going to bring up another thing that Bell Hooks has said in the past in her book, because I think it's important. And it's a quote from someone that, when I read this, it really hit me really hard. So I want to bring this up. And this is a quote from activist Mary Barfoot. Hide this real quick and share my screen. So Mary Barfoot talked about what she calls elevator women. So these are white women, hurt and angry, who believe that the 70s women's movement meant sisterhood and feel betrayed by escalator women. So escalator women are women who went back home to the patriarchy. The women's movement never left the father Dick's side. There was no war and there was no liberation. We got a share of genocide profits and we love it. We are sisters of patriarchy and true supporters of national and class oppression. Patriarchy in its highest form is Euro-imperialism on a world scale. If we're Dick's sister and want what he has gotten, then in the end we support that system that got it from. So when I talk about the girl boss feminism, like rising to the top, we love a breaking a glass ceiling, female CEOs. I don't support that type of feminism because it does nothing. It just kind of steps on other women to get you there. And you're becoming part of the patriarchal system. You're the one being the patriarch instead of a man. So I don't appreciate that type of feminism. I don't think that there is really a good place for it. Because you cannot, as Brant very well said, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. You're just replacing the master. Okay, where does TERF sit on the spectrum? I don't consider that feminism. Because trans women are women. So if you don't accept trans women as women, then you're not a feminist in my eyes. You're just using feminism for your own gains. Visibility is a trap. That's true, because when it comes to visibility, you always do end up losing something valuable. Like the fact that whenever feminism becomes visible, it always becomes watered down. It doesn't become any kind of feminism that truly challenges power, that challenges the systems of domination that is meant to challenge. Let's see. Thank you. Thank you, Wash. I appreciate that. Remember these issues being covered in depth in American Experience two-parter, the vote about the suffragette movement? I haven't watched that. I will definitely have to check that out. Yes, Greg, feminists definitely get a bad rap. Thank you. So people definitely think that feminism is just like basically like hating men. It's like, no, if you actually, a lot of feminists do go through a phase of misandry when they're first going through consciousness raising, just because you get it in your head like, oh my god, you don't understand the idea of patriarchy yet. That patriarchy is a system of domination. It's not men. So it's not men that we hate, it's patriarchy, which is basically saying that being male and male attributes, masculine attributes, are superior to female attributes. And so it's a hierarchical system. It's not, so we're against the system. It's not you guys, men. It's not men. We don't hate men. We hate patriarchy, and patriarchy is just as detrimental to men. So it's about patriarchy. Right, highly recommend a book called Take Back the Fight, Organizing Feminism for the Digital Age. I will definitely look into that book. That sounds excellent. I've definitely read a few books about feminism for the digital age. I'll have to create a reading list for you guys. That way you can see what different. No Gloria Steinem feminism. I mean, I don't have any outright dislike of Gloria Steinem, but I do have a problem, especially when she's saying like that supporting Bernie makes you a bad woman because you're just doing it for the boys. Like, no, he had great policies that helped women. And so I was very unhappy with Gloria Steinem when she said that. Right. Trans-exclusive radical feminism. It was being labeled as radical feminism as opposed to binary. I mean, radical feminism isn't like trans-exclusionary. I think that's what you meant. Trans-exclusionary radical feminism. Because what radical feminism is actually about is looking at the root. That's what the word radical means, is looking at the root. So understanding the causes of sexism and fighting those causes of sexism. So definitely fighting for women, but I don't agree with trans women. I don't agree with essentialist feminism. Like, I don't believe that being a woman is inherent to having a female body. In that, you know, being born with a uterus, I don't think being born with a uterus necessarily makes you a woman. You know, being born female does not make you a woman. Yes, thank you, Savvy. Smash that like button, everyone, and definitely support FHL. Sorry for getting through this. Example of female misogynist in a. I do not want to get into that. I do not want to get into that. I will say this though, is that I definitely don't appreciate Anna Kasparian's use of those events against Jimmy Dore. I don't appreciate her weaponization of Me Too, because that is really damaging to women who have actually experienced violence. And that's not to say that I don't believe that she experienced sexual harassment or whatever. Like, but especially when you have someone like Jenk as your main host, who has said pretty gross things as well in participating in it. That's not to say that she may not have experienced sexual harassment, but to use it in a way that has nothing to do with the sexual harassment. Like, the only reason she was bringing it up was because Jimmy and Aaron were talking about her journalism. If it's an actual critique like that, like, to decide to weaponize it in that moment, that's messed up. And that reminds me a lot of when Elizabeth Warren, for instance, brought up the story of what Bernie said about, you know, women, you know, not being able to win the presidency, which is not what he said. But the fact that she brought up that story right when Bernie was surging and she was falling. So it wasn't about sexism. It wasn't about sexual harassment or anything. It was a weaponization in order to gain an edge. And when you use it that way, it's really harmful. It's really harmful to survivors. It's really harmful to believing women, particularly because only about 2 to 8% of women who make accusations are proven false. Only 2 to 8, and that's of very, like, most women don't even ever accuse whoever it is that. So only about my mouse has stopped working, so I'll have to do it a different way. Right, on the topic of the 4th, what do you think about the nationalism being displayed? I think it's grotesque. I don't think there's any other way to talk about it. It's really grotesque. There's a difference between nationalism and patriotism, and nationalism is gross to me. I don't like it at all. I wonder if it's because, absolutely, neoliberal feminists have absolutely weaponized it, and they definitely may give actual feminists. Yes, I love Rania Kelly too. Rania, come on the show. Yep, woke imperialism, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Right. You have any comments on the left in South and Latin Americas where their leaders aren't on par with social issues? To be honest, that's not really in my wheelhouse. I don't know that much about social issues in Latin America. To be honest, I do have a friend from Brazil that I can bring on the show. I think she would actually give a lot more insight into that. Prime Minister Trudeau gets criticized frequently for his cynical claim that he's a feminist. I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, I definitely think that he's done good things, like doing gender parity in his cabinet positions. But I agree, like the way that it's very cynical when people call themselves a feminist and then don't really pass policies that help women. So I would agree with that. Is Janet Yellen a feminist? Maybe like a bourgeois feminist, which again I don't really see as like feminism, but I'm sure she probably thinks of herself as a feminist. But I definitely think that, she's in that realm of the girl boss, elevator woman feminist. Elizabeth Holmes. Not sure who Elizabeth Holmes is. Let's see. Yes, love men, hate the patriarchy. Definitely. Yeah, they believe women can be war criminals too. Yes, absolutely. Right. What? Swerve. Janet Yellen's position in monetary policy. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It does harm working class women. That's why I say that, she's more of a girl boss elevator. She's an elevator woman. She's an elevator woman. Yeah. Absolutely easy. Men are harmed by patriarchy too. Particularly when, and this is one of the parts about like heteropatriarchy is like gay men are not equal to, heterosexual men. So it's masculinity, and that toxic masculinity especially, that is elevated over everything else. How many of those feminist haters also denounce men who do crimes on women systemically? That is a good point. See, male feminism is a thing now, thank goddess. Other people mistake radicalism for extremism. Absolutely. Yeah, the word radical means to get to the root. So it's getting to the root of a problem. Radical does not mean extreme. see. Meg, do you think you could give me some words for the guys who still holding to the poetry for one reason or another think feminism while women take over? Yeah, so this is one of the same problems with like the idea of like black, like they like to talk about black supremacy instead of white supremacy and matriarchy taking over patriarchy. It's like, no, feminism is not about putting in a matriarchy. I mean, the idea valued. For instance, the fact that pink color jobs and care work is often not valued at the same rate that male work is, and even in female dominated industries, men are still paid more than women. And when women enter male dominated industries, the value of those industries tends to be devalued. So yeah, it's not about right. Sorry, guys. As regulars of this show know, I have horrible internet. So support the show so I can get better internet, please. Okay. Let's see. Okay. See, I heard a man who was literally tortured and raped in Gitmo admits. You see, rape is not woman stuff. Men can be raped too. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is like this devaluation and saying like, oh, this like anything that's considered woman stuff is kind of on a different level when men are raped too. It's not woman stuff. See, anti-contrarian is grappling on the meat. I agree. I like Judith Butler. I definitely am more of a. I do definitely agree that like gender and things like that are social constructs, and that most of gender is very performative. And that's basically what her argument was. I'm performing like right now. I'm performing a type of femininity that, and you can definitely perform femininity or you can perform masculinity. When women intend, usually when women perform masculinity, is seen as more preferable than when men perform femininity. So I definitely agree with her on that front. Thank you, Wash. I appreciate that. All right. We're getting a little short on time, so I'll answer as many questions as I can. How do we feel about hijab, gender, cultural coverings? Can you disagree with that? Honestly, in my eyes, if a woman wants to wear hijab, let her wear hijab. That's her right. That's her right to decide if to practice her religion that way. Hijab being forced upon a woman. Not at all. If a woman is being forced to wear it, then I don't agree with it. But again, like there's not anything. It's just the same as like if we were to look at, oh, you know, women are valued for being naked over here in the United States. There's a great cartoon about that very subject where a woman in a bikini is walking by a woman in a hijab, and both are talking about how the other is oppressed. So yeah, that's the most I can really say about that issue. I can have someone on. I think that's an important issue, and I'll definitely look for someone to have on to talk about that. See, it's the kind of definition of vapid entertainment right now. Okay, so you can't hear the fireworks. Good to know. Yeah. Neo-lib, fake feminists. Absolutely. And another book that I would highly recommend is this book right behind me. If you haven't read it, highly recommend. Feminism for the 99%. Basically talking about liberal feminism is a joke. We should have a militant working class feminism that is for all of us. Basically bullshit. The idea of meritocracy is basically that there are exceptional Black people, exceptional women who rise through the ranks, and if they do, then they're exceptional. But the rest of us, you know, we're just not good enough, and we don't deserve to succeed because of whatever barriers. Like if we can get through the barriers, we're exceptional. If we can't, then what are you gonna do? And all that really does is keep the powerful and keep the power with the powerful. Because that's only true if you're working class. If you were born into wealth, if you were born into privilege, that doesn't really apply to you. Okay, so Elizabeth Holmes was the person who ran a fraudulent biotech company. Okay, I'm not familiar with that story, but I can definitely look into it. Right. I read an anthropologist's account of a person getting buried alive. Oh shit. Interesting. Patriarchy requires men to dehumanize self, absolutely, to enable them to do violence on the other. 100% read. I think that's a great way of talking about patriarchy. And feminism must include intersectionality, especially for Black misogyny affected individuals and other women of color. Absolutely. If your feminism is not intersectional, it is bullshit. Do you think the Me Too movement died now? I don't believe that the Me Too movement died. However, I do think that Joe Biden has done an immense damage to it. I think that, and you've seen this with like women standing on the street with signs for Andrew Cuomo. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what is your, like, why would you support a sexual harasser and someone who committed a sexual assault? And I am actually in the process of getting Tara Reid to come on the show. So hopefully I should have her on soon. I'm very excited about that. Feminism like Black Lives Matter are horribly... I disagree. Because feminism is definitely about, you know, bringing appreciation back to the feminine and saying like the feminine should be valued as much as the masculine. And that women should be treated as human because that's what we are. So let's try and make sure. True. Good point. The value of a college degree reduces direct proportion to the number of women graduating from said. I think it depends on the type of degree, because I definitely agree. Like, this is one thing that I heard an interview with the author of The Cult of Smart on Ben Burgess's show, and I want to read that book because it sounds really interesting to me. And basically, like the fact that, like, the idea of being able to code, if you can code, and that's basically just like now something that everyone has is no longer valuable. So if everyone can code and there's not enough jobs for people who can code, then that makes it less valuable to have the ability to code. Yeah, male nurses can make more than female, and I know that from experience because both of my parents are nurses, and my dad makes more than my mom, even though my mom has been a nurse longer than he has. Yeah. What do you think of AOC trying to get Biden administration to publicly report on demographics? Oh, I would honestly have to look more into that. I'm not familiar with her trying to do this. Public report on the demographics of honestly, I believe in representation, not tokenism. So just having someone in a position of a demographic doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be representation. But definitely, if she's talking about that we should have more qualified people of color in those positions, I would agree with that. I don't know enough about what you're talking about to directly answer that question. Okay, I'm just going to go to some of the newer ones. Yeah, I would agree with this. Joe Biden is definitely putting all movements to sleep. You're definitely right on that. Meg, any other books, documentaries, exposition, whatever that you think is a must read? The two books that are like, this one is definitely one that has been very formative to my feminism over the last few years. Anything by Bell Hooks. Judith Butler, of course, is a good one. Like most of what Audre Lorde, of course. A book that I'm reading right now that I think is really good is by Jennifer Nash. It's called Black Feminism Reimagined After Intersectionality, in which she kind of critiques the individualism that you see in a lot of intersectional movements. So I would maybe recommend that one. It's definitely a bit more academic. Definitely anything by Thomas Frank about, so, you know, whatever happened to Kansas, the people know. Listen Liberal has been hugely informed, but there's definitely a lot of different ones I would recommend. Okay, I am all out of time. We are about to get into Nerdolitics in a couple of minutes, so I'll definitely see you guys in just a few moments. But this has been fun. I'm so glad that you guys are interested in the show. So definitely go over to the other YouTube channel, the Killjoy Guide podcast, and subscribe. That way you never miss a video when it goes up. Support the show through Anchor, and support FHL through Ko-fi, kofi.com/FHL network to support the show. And definitely, you know, follow me on Twitter at Killjoy Meg, or follow the podcast at the Killjoy Pod. All the information is in the video description. So get ready, and in just a couple of minutes, we're going to go live with Nerdolitics. It's time to celebrate what Independence Day is really about, and that's the fact that Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum saved the world from aliens. All right, I will see you guys in just a couple of minutes on Nerdolitics. See you guys soon. And definitely catch the show on July 13th. Bye.